Is there a moral good? As we live our day-to-day lives in this modern society, we come into contact with a term frequently used called relativism. What is true for you is true for me. We can have these differing of truth, right? This can be troublesome. How are we to act? How are we to decide and know what is good and what isn't? What's good for you is good for you, and what's right and just action for myself, if those come into conflict, how do I choose? It begs the question, what is there a good, a moral good, a true good anyway? Well, we could spend a long time, talking about and reflecting on relativism, but I really just want to hone in on a couple of few key aspects. The first is, life experience. We all have life experience, um, and in that experience, we come into contact with individuals. We come into contact with events in our lives where there's very clearly a right and a wrong. Now, what do I mean by right and wrong? We can always disagree. We can have differings of opinion, right? On the very same choice, that very same choice to cut someone off in traffic so that you make your, allotted destination on time. That can be something that someone says in one breath is wrong. You should never cut somebody off in traffic. But then the other person could very well disagree with you. So which is right? Who's got the moral right here, or is there one? I would argue that yeah, there is a moral right in some situations. There are certain moral truths that they transcend culture and race and yes, even faith traditions. There are certain things, for example, like murder, that are instinctually wrong. We know in the very deepest parts of our hearts, regardless of where we are from, what language we know, what faith tradition we adhere to or don't, murder is not right. It's not a just action. Now, you could get into a nuanced argument, of course, about, well, what about if you're defending someone's honor, defending someone who is being unjustly persecuted, right? Is it wrong? Well, um, I would argue that's not murder in the first place, right? Murder is when you take someone's life, you take a human being's life with no real justification for it, right? You're doing it because you can, because you want to, and no tradition, no person knows that to be okay. So okay, if there's certain universal truths, then that tells us a few things. Chiefly among them, it tells us about the origin of truth. If there are certain parts of reality, if we can say that there are moments, choices that are true and good, and moments and choices that are true and bad, or unjust, or unloving, and we universally agree on them, well, how can we universally agree on them? Well, there really is only one answer logically to that question, and that is God. God is the origin of all that is good. Therefore, all of our actions that are good reflect back to God and are directed towards God. We don't have to say that we believe in God, but if we say that we believe that there is a moral good, that there are things that are good and right, and there are things that are bad, we might disagree on what those things are, but if we agree on that premise, that there are good things and there are bad things, then we believe in the Almighty. We believe in God. Perhaps that's that first step that someone in your life might need to take towards deepening their faith, deepening their relationship with the Almighty. Let us meditate on that this week and in the coming weeks. Those moral good choices. How often am I making those with the idea that I am making them, and each time I do, I'm drawing myself closer to God?